Now let's talk about food. Please pay attention to this segment because it will make you a lot of money. Because this is the other component of the CPI that's excluded from the core. Get ready to be blown away. So we have a massive shortage. It's such an overused word because I try to use a bigger word than that. Massive. I'll say 3 times shortage of fertilizer right now, which is why I'm recommending Mosaic. We're up a lot on, even though the stock's down 25% from its highs. It came down a little bit from its earnings report. But I'd be buying it, hand over fist right now. Buy any fertilizer company right now. And why am I saying that? Fertilizer companies use 3 key nutrients. It's nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. They also use ammonia-based nutrients since they can be mass-produced. This helps farmers increase their crop yields. What does that mean? They increase production of food while keeping their costs constant. They've been doing this over the past 50 years. But natural gas is a major input to produce all these chemicals. Where are natural gas prices? They've skyrocketed. Again, it's not going to change anytime soon unless the war in Russia suddenly ends and Russia and Europe are suddenly getting along, which we don't see. But all the other European nations are getting along. We don't see it. So it's not going to ease anytime soon. You would think that's the largest factor, energy prices. And you can say, well, it's cyclical and it'll come back down a bit. That's the least concern. That's the least problem you need to worry about when it comes to fertilizer. Because Europe and the U.S. have massive sanctions against Russia, which we know about. But they also have sanctions against Belarus, who's an ally to Russia. Now, Russia accounts for 20% of the world's nitrogen, phosphate, and potash exports. And since the start of the war, these exports have declined considerably, which makes sense. But Belarus is one of the largest producers of potash, along with Russia. So together, we're talking about 40% of the world's potash supply being disrupted. That's what's happening right now. But it gets even better, because now we have to throw in China. So China, well, they're the largest phosphate provider in the world. And what is China doing right now? The country our politicians support the most, to where we're not allowed to say anything negative against China, or we're going to get thrown off social media. Not Twitter anymore, but all the other social media channels. So what's China doing? You guessed it. They're limiting the supply to the world. As the phosphate they produce, what are they doing with it? They're stockpiling it, which is brilliant. A brilliant move on their part. And forget energy, which China doesn't have any of, other than coal, which they're mass producing, right? Our U.S. politicians don't care, as if coal does not destroy the planet, right? Our coal doesn't destroy the planet. Only the coal that's produced in the U.S. does, right? So every place else, it's okay to produce coal. But in the U.S., it destroys our planet. We got to get rid of it. But everybody else can produce it. It's fine. It's not going to destroy the planet if they produce it, right? But China is actually brilliant, because we're talking about food. And they're controlling the price of food right now, which higher prices can destroy developed economies, which in turn makes China incredibly powerful. It also creates a huge bargaining chip to get countries on your side when you go after Taiwan, which eventually they will. That's a bargaining chip Russia did not have before invading Ukraine. Could get any countries on its side. It's different now. Looking at China. Again, they're going to learn from that mistake. This is a big bargaining tool. So you have Russia, Belarus, China, the 3 of the world's largest fertilizer producers, all restricted production. That's why we're seeing fertilizer prices absolutely surge. Now, when you look at the farmers, it's not like they could pass off these costs to consumers. What do they do instead? They use less fertilizer because it costs so much. This, in turn, decreases their crop yields, which reduces the amount of food available for the world to eat. And now we have a shortage of food all over the world, which again is resulting in food prices skyrocketing. How much? Well, in February, the world food costs soared to an all-time high. All-time high, right? We're used to that with prices. All-time high in February. 1 month later in March, this is the latest reading. So April's going to come out next week. So this is the latest reading in March. Prices rose another 13%. Not year over year. Month over month. They rose 13%. Wait till you see them come out this month. More importantly, wait till you see them come out over the next 6 months. Because if you're looking at prices and higher food prices, this sucks for us. Right? Because higher food prices, we go out to eat, we all eat, right? We pay much higher prices in the future on food. That's bad. But think about third world countries. Because when we pay higher prices and we're pissed off, they're not going to have access to food. They can't afford it. You look at fertilizer prices actually tripled. And how bad is this problem right now, today, right now? We're not talking about the future. We're talking about right now. Peru's agricultural industry is facing a deficit of 180,000 metric tons of urea. It's a huge output in growing rice, potatoes, and corn. I know, probably means nothing to you, but they're predicting a 40% decline in supply due to higher fertilizer prices. A 40% decline in rice, potatoes, and corn. A 40% decline. The International Rice Research Institute, that's really an organization. They predicted crop yields could drop 10% next season, meaning there'll be 36 million fewer tons of rice. Let's put that in perspective. Enough to feed 500 million people. Sub-Saharan Africa is predicting a 30 million ton decrease in food production. That's enough to feed 100 million people. In Brazil, the world's biggest soybean producer, a 20% cut in potash could bring a 14% drop in yields. Costa Rica, coffee, representing 1,200 small coffee producers, sees output falling as much as 15% next year if the farmers miss even 1/3 of normal application, which they will. These are the problems we're facing right now when it comes to our food. Now, what about the future? Because that's where things get interesting, because they're telling us that inflation is going to moderate. It's going to moderate. We're going to be fine. It's going to slow. Here it is. So right now, farmers are significantly decreasing fertilizer usage for current crops, or crops that won't make their way to the shelves for months, right? It takes time to grow, then pick, then ship, right? We all know that. So the inflation numbers we're seeing right now are absolutely nothing, especially in the food category. I mean, we talked about energy, but the food category, it's absolutely nothing to where food prices will be over the next 3 to 6 months. Because farmers are using less fertilizer for these current crops that result in lower crop yields or much less food hitting the market. So fewer supply coupled with massive demand, economics 101, and prices for food, you think they're high now. Holy shit. That's why you should buy a fertilizer company. Buy any fertilizer company. Because prices of food, that's the next crisis. This is going to be one of the, if not the biggest food crisis we've seen in history of the world. That's how much prices are going to go higher. That's how crazy this is. China knows what they're doing. Russia knows what they're doing. They know what they're doing. They're controlling the food supply. They know. Because higher prices are going to kill everybody. These are costs and even energy that are directly tied to the consumer. But yet, our wonderful government and Fed exclude this from their inflation figures. Like everything's going to get better because the core CPI came down. So we can see the core CPI come down. But inflation for these two components alone could go up 15% from here, which we're going to feel directly. So while the Fed's bullshitting you, saying, oh, well, it's moderating and everything's cool, you're going to be paying even higher prices for energy and much, much, much higher prices for food. I mean, think about that for a minute. Because the Fed is going to be talking out of its ass the next couple of days, like it always does, because they should have been raising rates over a year ago to control inflation, where all asset prices surged to record highs. This was a year ago. Record highs. Earnings, home prices, household wealth, cars, almost every single asset surged all-time highs. And yet, continue to print trillions in money. Didn't matter. You, me, every American, every person on this planet that eats, drives a car, uses any type of energy to heat or cool their homes is going to see a massive increase in their cost of living as food and energy prices are not going to lower anytime soon. But again, this will be excluded. So if you're wondering why you're seeing these huge market swings, it's because of the uncertainty around these events where we can't plan. We can't say, okay, here's the top. Here's where we're going to hit. Here's rates going for the 10-year. 3.3%. Like nobody's predicting where we are. We're in uncharted territory right now. The predictions right now are so far out there. I mean, everybody's catching up, even the Wall Street firms. It's almost like all the Wall Street firms are predicting whatever, a company earns $1 a share and they come in at like 25 cents a share. And you're like, holy shit, how did that happen? Well, you're not updating your estimates. We're so far behind the curve to the point where even the analysts and the smartest people in the room really don't know what's going on because we don't know what the Fed's going to do, especially when it comes to inflation. We don't know about the war. We don't know what Russia's going to do. Are they really going to shut off the gas supply? I mean, it's going to hurt them, but holy shit, where the hell are gas prices going? Where do we see energy prices going? But that's why we're seeing these massive market swings, where we're not able to predict what's going to happen over the next 6 to 12 months. It's hard to find the catalyst, the positive catalyst. Say the war is going to end, inflation is going to moderate. The Fed's going to raise by this. I mean, we don't even know how much the Fed plans on raising. They're saying one thing, and we know it has to be another.